Happy Thursday, gamers. We've got a special fun match for you today. I'm, of course, NanMans. Thanks for tuning in and watching some modern action. We've got kind of our consistent normal tier 1 list of Hollow 1 here. We've featured on the channel multiple times this year in 2025, and we've got a little bit of a newer list to feature on the channel. Now, it has been popping up here and there on MTGO. You've seen it as well as in events and things like that. It's, of course, Merfolk here. So Merfolk versus Hollow 1, how are things going to work? Hollow 1 is a very explosive deck. It has the kind of potential to be able to have very aggressive turns, being able to utilize things like Nethergoyf, Detective's Phoenix, and have these big aggressive swings out of nowhere that you might not be as anticipating or prepared for. Where the Merfolk can be able to be very powerful in the right meta, especially if there's a lot of blue running around. And we know that when we're talking about S-tier decks, we did a whole breakdown of all of the decks that are in Modern right now, and one of the #1 decks out there is the Dimir list, specifically Oculus that's running around there. So, you know, having abilities to island walk and get in there and push for damage is really nice. The only difficulties with this specific matchup is that Merfolk is a, kindred-based deck that's all about creatures, and you're very focused on being able to swarm the battlefield as much as possible. Now, you do have some counter spells and stuff like that. We've seen Flare of Denial, Force of Negation, things like that. You also have Merfolks that help with some countering ability, have some ward protection, but the Hollow 1 deck is full of removals, right? It's got, of course, Lightning Bolt, Fatal Pushes, and even Orcish Bowmaster can count as removal in certain instances if you're throwing that down and then being able to follow it up with Faithless Lootings or these other draw effects. Well, Faithless Lootings just helps you draw, but the one-sided one. What is? Oh my gosh! Now I'm blanking on the name of it. 1 red, both players draw 3, discard 3. That's the one that you're looking for here. It'll come to me. It'll be played, I'm sure, in this match, and we'll be able to figure it out. But speaking of Bowmasters, here he is showing up right now. All right, so going to start pinging it off. The Merfolk list isn't really known for having a lot of draw potential. It's really just kind of like, hey, we're going to do our thing. We're going to push for damage, do things like that. But Merfolk Trickster is going to come in. Now, we get a little bit of our Merfolk players learning the deck, and we're basically trying to interact and see if there's a way that we can sequence it to mess with Bowmaster and stop it from dealing the damage and stuff like that. But so we go through it. No, it's already kind of on the stack. It's happening. You've missed your chance because this has to basically it's this enter ability that we're interacting with. You need to be able to counter that triggered ability, not be able to stop that ability with the Trickster. So little nuanced things like that. All right, so how do we interact with this? What's our big game plan here? Again, if you're on the Hollow 1, your goal is to kind of set up with the Nethergoyf, try to set up some good shenanigans with your graveyard, and go from there. There's a bolt. Let's start clearing the path, clear off any of those. We talked about the kind of potential of removal spells. That's going to be something that we have to watch out for here. And now we're going to swing for some damage. How big is that Nethergoyf? Well, not too bad. There's our our counter target triggered ability there. We see some Tidebinders. There's also, looks like, of course, ability to get Island Walk. We have the Kicker Merfolk in hand to shut a land down. So, there's a couple of options. We go for the pass turn here because we have Flash and we can be able to kind of sneak something in. We don't have our Vial this time, so that is another thing that does matter a lot with the Merfolk list. And you're kind of, in this specific situation, we're feeling a lot more behind because we went second and we're just sort of dealing with the onslaught and our first creature was removed. So we're in this weird, awkward spot of trying to find a window to be able to do something. All right, so here we go. Tashana's Tiebinder. I love this card a lot. And I am not currently playing it in any of my lists, but maybe I just need to go back and rebuild my Merfolk list so I can run it again. I was running it for a while in my Murktide lists, especially like in Sideboard and stuff like that, but since then, not as much anymore. So, so we're seeing some interactions. We'll see what happens. Okay, so now we do get the indication. I keep leaving the Tarma dice at home. And now we get to see Harbinger of Seas coming out is nice. Now, there is a mountain over there, so, of course, that does mean, like, lightning bolts and stuff like that are still fair game. But Harbinger makes a huge difference in the current meta. Turning everything into islands really messes things up. It also helped push the Merfolk list up a little bit more with the island walking and stuff like that. All right, just kind of passing. We're left. Like, we had the option to play another Merfolk because we had that one drop in hand, but we're not really doing that yet. Which is fine. Like, the problem is we don't really... Like, if we played the one drop, we at least could throw it in the way of the Nethergoyf and absorb that hit that way. But it's also risky if we play it and don't... No, because our opponent does have islands, so it'll essentially be a 2-2. So I was like, if they play something and... just get shot down. But let's see, what do they use that one red for? Are they got another bolt? Are they just going to shoot it? Oh, no, we can just do the bestow of the Detective's Phoenix, and that's going to be a bit of a problem. So now that will put us for 6 power. Swinging across, flying, dropping us to 3. And now it's basically like, okay, do we have... most lists aren't running things like Vapor Snags and stuff like that anymore. You might see maybe like a 1 or 2 of in the sideboard, but for the most part, people are off that style. Let's now turn that into an island. So now you have access to all islands. What else can we do? Oh, nice. Okay. So this is really nice. Other Merfolks have Ward 1. Whenever a Merfolk attacks, draw a card. And this, of course, is indestructible as long as you control 2 other Merfolks. So she's currently indestructible. We swing in with the Harbinger. We don't, like, yeah, we could draw a card, but that doesn't really help us. But really, we have no way to deal with the flying, no way to stop the bestow here. So we're kind of left with the flying Nethergoyf swinging across. And there we go. Bam. Game 1, going to the hollow 1, which is fine. That's okay. We kind of expect that. All right, sideboard plans. What are we going for here as the hollow 1? If you've got access to a little bit more removal or things like that, those are going to be useful. Pretty much you're fine with your game plan. You don't have to really worry about too much boarding in against a Merfolk player. On the Merfolk side, if you have access to maybe things that could interact with a graveyard, you could be able to bring in those. We don't really have that at the moment. So we've got Aether Vial on turn 1, which this might make a big difference compared to game number 1. Because, we now get to start cheating things in at instant speed a little bit more than before where we were just like, we're flashing things in, which is nice. All right, let's see. Oh, no, we forgot. So, again, this is the thing. I try to talk to everybody watching, or at least to newer players, if you have an effect that you need to do, because remember, I was talking about it, when I started playing baubles again, I kept missing my bauble draw effects. Get a dice, put it on top of your library. Especially if you're a Vial player and you're just getting back into playing Aether Vial again, you're going to want to have access to, that. You got to take it up to 2. 2 is the sweet spot for Merfolk. But we're gonna hardcast Lord of Atlantis. Of course, the Foundations gives us the new art for it. I still have the old school one, but there's a Tarfire. Ooh, that hurts a bit. I don't think vialing anything in on 1 because people aren't running Curse Catchers or anything like that anymore. Maybe a few lists, but that kind of hurts there. Tarfire, great if we'll usually see a 1 of, 2 of in Hollow 1 list because of the Nethergoyf cares about that tribal instant in there. So there, we're not forgetting this time. Grabbing a dice. All right, so we have a decent amount of stuff here. Looks like we just do the passing of the turn. We have a Force of Negation. Looks like, as well as a couple flash effects that we could flash in and be able to kind of bounce around and do stuff here. So a lot of that kind of debate and planning here. But Surveil lands coming out, helping us out, pitching some cards to the graveyard. And no real threat. So this is also the big difference between Game 1 and Game 2 for a Hollow 1 is we're not really deploying anything at the moment, which is kind of giving us an indication that maybe they're doing Bowmaster stuff and things like that. But here we go, a Hex Catcher coming in here. We could sacrifice it, counter non-creature spells unless the controller pays 1, right? So this is kind of that added bonus of the Curse Catcher that used to exist now is on a Lord effect, so that does help out a bit. Now we got to the 2 costs that we needed here with our Vial, which does help quite a bit. Now, Hexcatcher is a 1/1, so there is that, it is weak at the moment, so bringing our Lords in and doing stuff like that will make a big difference. We can also respond to our opponent if they start doing things, like flashing in a Bowmaster or stuff, but we'll just kind of poke for 1. And I like this kind of poke pass mentality, right? We have stuff that we can vial in and interact, and we don't necessarily want to be the first person to act or, do stuff. Like here we see a Fatal Push coming out. Now, if we have a 1-drop or something like that, we could do, or 2-drop, something that we are fine with. We're going to hit that with the Force of Negation, which is not a bad plan here. We're just kind of showing that we really care about that and want to keep that alive. Still, yeah, hard cast and Force of Negation. There's a fetch. Did I miss the life total change? I might have. Let me know if y'all are watching. Did I miss the life total change of the fetch land? The downside to editing and trying to keep the life totals up to date for everybody. It's a whole process of getting the videos up for you all. So I really appreciate everybody that tunes in and watches every week. We do, of course, have games every Monday and Thursday, and then the sprinkling of fun content on Saturday as we're pushing closer and closer to that 1,000 subscriber mark. We're at 986 as of the time of recording here, which is really cool that we're getting so close to it. And we are planning something, do some fun stuff. We've course looking into doing some, looks like sealed product opening is the current winner right now for our voting. So if you're not familiar, there is our our post on the channel where you can be able to vote and get your votes in on what you guys would like to see when we hit that 1,000 mark. All right, Master of the Pearl Trident coming in here, giving all merfolks +1/+1 an island walk. Our opponent doesn't have any islands at the moment, but that, we've seen that could easily change. Lightning Bolt's going to come in and surveil, and we'll be able to just pop that Master of the Pearl Trident there. Dragon Rage Channeler, of course, you see is already a 3/3. I like that our player, the Hollow One player, is helping to indicate that with the the dice on there, because that is like one of those nice things that you're like, oh, okay, cool. For viewers at home, Lots of thinking here. I guess the debate about, yeah, whether or not to slash stuff in here. We still got the Violet in 2. We've got 2 cards in hand. Faithless Looting is going to get used. Surveil. And so now just giving the confirmation, hey, we're doing the cast response. I'm triggering this, which gives us that opening to be able to respond. And Tishana's Tidebinder the trigger, countering it, so no more Surveil. And now it basically blankets Dragon Rage Channeler, so it's a 1/1 and has no other abilities. Doesn't care about Delirium, doesn't care about any of that.
I've been wanting to play this deck for forever, never played it before, so you get to stumble through.
A Merfolk player apologizing for learning the deck and stuff like it. We want to showcase it so other people could pick it up and be like, oh, this seems like a cool strategy, flashing in and doing stuff on, instant speed with creatures. And like, it's not often we get to see Vile decks, and players learning the decks and being able to showcase them on the channel is awesome, because I love being able to show different decks. We have seen a lot of Hollow One, we've seen a lot of Twin. We're going to see a lot of those coming up as well, but we're also going to be seeing some other fun decks. Like we've got, let's see, what are some, of course, Yawgmoth stuff. We've got our Hardened Scales coming up. We've got a Jund list coming up, as well as the Twins and the Hollow Ones. So lots of cool games coming up soon for everybody. So. All right. Nethergoyf, Detective Phoenix, haste for 8 damage. So now that's a clock right there. So you're staring down the board and you're sitting here going, okay, we've built up enough, and you can see the slight separation that the Hollow One player did over there on the left with their graveyard, and just to kind of like lay things out. Cool artifact, enchantments, right? Creatures, lands. I got all these things. I have the tribal instant, right? So you kind of lay it all out, and you know right away what you've got going on here. Now, basically, there's a 2-turn clock left. We're at 10, though. So as long as our opponent doesn't assemble a bunch of lords, we might be okay. Tidebinder is a 4/3 at the moment, so that's going to be a little bit scary. We could throw the Dragon Rage Channeler in the way, but I don't know. Nope, looks like we don't. So we go swing in. Here's 4 damage, dropping to 6. 6 is fine, right? Life is a resource. Use it how you see fit to help you get further in this game, knowing that there's not going to be like a bolt, snap, bolt situation that you're facing down. You are okay to be able to be like, yeah, I'll take this. And if I can swing in for 8 more damage and follow it up with a Bowmaster and a bolt, or, like you can, it's easier to be able to try to assemble that last little bit of damage. And, oh, here we go. That's the card we forgot earlier in the match. Burning Inquiry, going to try to get used. Do we respond? Looks like we are looking about a response here. Because we do have another threat, right? We have another Tidebinder. Yeah, so Tishana's Tidebinder going to come out. Basically just to kind of allow us to have another threat on board. Here's a couple of cards. That's the card you get to keep. Discard the rest. All right, a lot more cards in hand for our Hollow One player. It says, get rid of those. It looked like maybe another Bowmaster, or is that the Street Wraith? We only caught a glimpse of it there.
What are you
All right, we're going to continue digging. Faithless Looting coming out. We're looking. We're trying. It really seems like we're trying to close it out. So now it's the debate. Do we push for damage here? Bobble going to be used. I guess we have one blocker, but I don't know. All right, no damn. We're not swinging in. Ooh, flashing in another Lord, giving everything +1. So that's 2 of those Lord effects. Okay, let's see. 2 blockers. I mean, we have lethal, right? We swing in with everything. Oh, wait, no, those are 1/1, so we needed another Lord. So now with Master of the Pearl Trident, that makes everything 3/3s. Ah, okay, so it's like we didn't have lethal before, but we do now. So we were able to piece it together. That's the fun puzzle aspect of Merfolk, is like, how can I just get enough Lords out to assemble up and count up there? And that was the difference between both those matches of, the Merfolk player going first versus going second. The Hollow One player struggling to get a threat out until later, but we saw just like once it hit, boom, 8 damage swinging across there. So really, that's that explosive power that the deck has, and a reason why a lot of players are running it right now, and it's kind of one of those A-tier decks. All right. Ooh, okay. So Tide Shaper coming down. We decide not to wait on it. Like, because if you wait and you do the kicker, you get to start shutting down lands. Which makes me wonder, what is our follow-up on turn 2? Are we just going to play a Lord and go? And I guess we're trying to make sure we have threats out, and maybe those might absorb removal to keep our Lords alive that we play in the following turns. I don't know. We'll see. Bowmasters is a problem. That'll help clean up that threat. What are we left with here? Where's our follow-up? All right, fetching for an island. I like the island choices too, all right? We're thinking about basic land choices for these players, like the Red Mountain, this full art one, fits really nicely for the Hollow One, or even these like old school island fits really well for Merfolk because it's such an old school modern deck. But there is our first little indication. So this is the reason why. Okay, we had a turn 2, same play, and it would have buffed both of them there.
second game, I was like, I just needed something. But I was like, it was all over the place. My hand was not working at all.
All right, so again, Hollow One has a lot of low threats out right now. They're trying to set up with Dragon Rage Channeler. They're trying to kind of help keep things in check with Bowmasters. So let's see where they're going to be able to start getting. Okay, now we finally get a big threat. Nethergoyf coming out here. That's the big threat of the deck. Other than, of course, the Hollow Ones, if you're able to like drop those down. Same sort of deal. They both fit that similar kind of position within the deck.
No, because I think it was two. I guess it could have, yeah. I was just trying to set the flame maybe just
Why do you keep taking it away?
Just because he's got menace. Yeah.
Bounce
What is
this,
it? He's got menace. He's
island
so
underneath
far
the sea, man.
That's one thing I was thinking about. Thinking if he, not that he had picks out cards for the guy. I was just thinking if he had a guy, he could just jump block it. Because I had another, I could just fade the sitting again and make him a 3 power.
All right, there's our Faithless. Let's see how big we can grow this Goyf here, especially with our, access to Dragon Rage Channeler doing our Surveil action. All right, so it looks like we are going to pull the trigger and force a negation. Now, here's a little tip and trick for players. If you have the force and you're going to force, wait, because it's like there is that sequencing line, right, where they go, hey, I'm going to cast this spell. I have a Surveil trigger. All right, you can just wait, say, Surveil trigger is good. All right, I'm letting the Surveil resolve. I'm not doing anything with the Surveil. You may finish that, let them look, because they might adjust their play on what they keep on top. In this case, it's a land, so it doesn't. They're not going to change pitching it to the graveyard. But there is that position where they go, oh, I have Faithless Looting, so I might keep something on top under the assumption that I'm going to draw 2 of these and I'll just discard this one card or something. Like they might make it a different play. So you can let them do that, and then you do the force. I like hitting the force here. There is that option of keeping the force for a removal spell and fighting in that case, but the fact that they can flash it back and stuff and force negation forces it into exile, they lose the first and basically second cast, so you're really hindering what they're trying to do by exiling that. So I like that play. Nethergoyf, currently 3 power, not too bad. What do we got here, though? No Vial again. So this is another thing to note. Our Merfolk list is a little bit behind because we don't have Vial. Giving us access to Ward is pretty good. We don't have Indestructible at the moment. We don't have 2 Merfolks. But imagine that if that was our curve, right? Go... if we had all of our Merfolks out, none of them died from a Bowmaster early, like, we would start to really be building things up. All right, we've got our red source. There's a bolt. Surveil trigger. And the Merfolk player. Yeah, so it is a trigger. So if you have the ward, you have to remind your opponents of the ward stuff, right? So it's like, hey, they have ward 1, so just kind of reminding them, respond to this, you have to pay the extra 1. So we do see using that island to do that. We got Surveil, pitching something to the graveyard. Goyf is big now, 5 power. We can absorb and try to do some blocking here if we want to. Big swings. Yeah, so 10 damage coming across here. We're going to block. Looks like we're debating the block. Yeah, let's do it. Let's block. Try to get rid of the Bowmaster here. So 9 damage total there. Dropping our Merfolk player to 8. And there's another bolt in hand. Do we use it? Do we fire it off? No, we got to push. Yeah, that's the other thing. It's other Merfolk get the ward 1, not every single one. So yeah, there's the push. Revolt trigger. Or is Revolt not a trigger? It just is like a condition to be able to use. I don't remember how Revolt works. It's been a while since I've done too much Revolting. All right, no play. Oh, that's okay. We got some flashing in. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's the handshake. Yeah, bolts are in hand. We got it. Clean it up. Oh, game 2 definitely felt much better, and even seeing the explosiveness of the Hollow One deck. Merfolk list is cool. It definitely is very dependent on Vile. I don't think any lists are going to be running like Urza Saga to help them find Vile or anything like that. It's not really where you want to go. I think you can get by with just kind of swarming the board a little bit. Hollow One's going to be a tough matchup you see here, but I feel like if you're playing against some of the blue decks like the Twin list or things like that, you might be able to kind of get in and steal some wins and stuff. So very cool to see. Nice to feature on the channel. Of course, thanks to everybody for tuning in and watching this week. Hope you guys like the content, and we'll see you guys next game.